Thanks for staying with us this half hour on Channels Television. I'm Amarachi Ubani. You're watching The World Today. We begin from the Middle East. After weeks of tensions, Iran and the United States have finally agreed to a conditional 2-week ceasefire and opening of the Hormuz Strait. Following the truce, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says there is a real chance at real peace. The Defense Secretary described the U.S. campaign against Iran as a historic and overwhelming victory, saying it forced Iran to agree to a ceasefire. U.S. President Donald Trump says the U.S. will work closely with Iran and they will dig up and remove buried nuclear material, adding that there will be no enrichment of uranium. However, both sides have claimed victory, Iran saying it will reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and its victory in the field would also be consolidated in upcoming talks. Trump had previously warned the United States would target Iranian energy infrastructure and bridges if a ceasefire is not reached by 8 p.m. Washington, D.C. time on Tuesday.
Iran has been a threat to the United States and the free world for 47 years. Chants of death to America, targeting our people, killing Americans, lying and blackmailing their way toward a nuclear weapon, so they thought. No longer. Not on our watch. Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this commander-in-chief. President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You see, in less than 40 days, one of our combatant commands, Central Command, CENTCOM, using less than 10% of America's total combat power, dismantled one of the world's largest militaries. The world's leading state sponsor of terrorism proved utterly incapable of defending itself, its people, or its territory. We untied just a fraction of our strength, and Iran suffered a devastating military defeat.
Reacting now to the truce between the U.S. and Iran, France's President Emmanuel Macron welcomed the announcement, reaffirming that lasting peace in the region can only be reached through dialogue and negotiation. He also reiterated support for regional partners while cautioning that the situation surrounding the Strait of Hormuz and ongoing Israeli military operations in Lebanon remain particularly sensitive. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Truth Social he's agreed to suspend attacks on Iran for 2 weeks on condition that Tehran immediately and fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz just hours before his own deadline for a deal. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has announced that Iranian and U.S. delegations are now expected to meet in Islamabad on Friday to further negotiate for a conclusive agreement to settle all disputes. In a related development, the UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is in Saudi Arabia, where he is visiting. He said that fully reopening the Strait of Hormuz to restore oil and gas supplies would help stabilize prices in the UK. He was making the remark just hours after the US and Iran agreed a ceasefire, following President Trump's threat a whole civilization will die if Iran does not agree to end the war and unblock the Strait of Hormuz. Comments are led Downing Street to call again for a de-escalation. Keir said there is a sense of relief following the ceasefire, but he acknowledged it is still early days. The Prime Minister is expected to discuss diplomatic efforts to support and uphold the ceasefire. As part of his Gulf trip, Starmer is expected to meet with the UK military personnel in the region, which was planned before the ceasefire agreement. And just hours after the announcement of the ceasefire between the US and Iran, Israeli military carried out a large wave of airstrikes across Lebanon, hitting the southern suburbs of Beirut and the eastern Bekaa Valley. The IDF described the attack as the largest wave of airstrikes in the conflict, targeting more than 100 of what it called Hezbollah command centers and military sites in 10 minutes. Media reports that high number of casualties across the country. Hospitals are overwhelmed. People are believed to be under rubble of collapsed buildings. The office of the Israeli Prime Minister's office has expressed support for the U.S. decision to suspend attacks on Iran, but says a 2-week truce does not apply to Lebanon. However, residents and local officials in Lebanon insist the buildings struck were not military sites. How do the people of Iran feel about the announcement by the U.S. president? Well, a lot of skepticism, I'll tell you. Protesters, however, questioned whether the pause in fighting would hold. Reaction follows a statement by President Trump on social media. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Iran's armed forces would cease defensive operations if attacks against the country stopped, adding that Tehran would permit safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz for 2 weeks via coordination with Iran's armed forces. Joining us now is former Permanent Secretary at the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi, who is right now in Sierra Leone, from where he joins us. Ambassador Keshi, thank you for making time to be on the program today. So a war was averted last night with the announcement of the ceasefire by the U.S. President Donald Trump, and now Iran confirming it. The foreign minister is saying that it will cease defensive operations if attacks against his country stops. Would you say this was a win for both sides? Ambassador Keshi. Ambassador Keshi, you need to unmute. I see that you have muted your audio. We'll keep trying to reconnect with Ambassador Joe Keshi. We do understand the internet connectivity a bit challenging in Sierra Leone, but the UN Security Council has failed to adopt a resolution aiming to boost security in the Strait of Hormuz as the critical shipping corridor remains largely closed to global trade and the transport of humanitarian aid. The draft resolution was vetoed by permanent members China and Russia, while 11 countries voted in favor of it. The draft resolution sought to strongly encourage states interested in the use of commercial maritime routes in the Strait of Hormuz, which lies between Iran, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates, and to coordinate efforts defensively to contribute to ensuring the safety and security of navigation there, including the use of escorts for merchants and commercial vessels. The draft also demanded that Iran immediately cease all attacks on shipping and any attempt to impede transit or freedom of navigation in the strait.
As we speak right now, 80 UN and international humanitarian groups delivering medical aid, shelter, supplies, and food to humanitarian crises in the Congo, in Sudan, in Gaza cannot pass through the strait. No one should tolerate that they are holding the global economy at gunpoint, but today, Russia and China did tolerate it. They sided with a regime that seeks to intimidate the Gulf into submission, even as it brutalizes its own people during a national internet blackout for daring to imagine dignity or freedom. Now it seeks to punish the world as cynical leverage in its death to America approach to foreign policy.
Let me be clear, this text would only embolden the United States and the Israeli regime to continue in their unlawful actions and atrocious crime while shielding from accountability. In substance, this was a United States draft introduced under the other names. 2 days, the President of the United States again resorted to language that is not only deeply irresponsible but profoundly alarming, declaring that, quote, the whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back, unquote. It is regrettable and alarming that while in full view of international community, the President of the United States shamelessly and brazenly issues threats to destroy all civilian infrastructure in Iran, including bridge, power plants, and energy facilities, by setting a deadline, and openly reveals this intent to commit war crimes and crime against humanity.
We're off on a short break on The World Today. Still ahead, China instilling multicolored laser lights on highways to fight night fatigue. Travelers will love this one. Stay with us. Welcome back. Here in Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa has officially received letters of credence from heads of mission designate representing 20 countries, including the United States, in a ceremony that formalizes diplomatic ties and confirms the status of newly appointed ambassadors. Among them is U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Brent Bozell. Bozell arrived in Pretoria as the U.S. Ambassador in February. He's explicitly said his main mission is to put pressure on South Africa to drop its genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice.
In short order, I'd fall in love with the country. It's only taken. Your Excellency, it's a great honor and a privilege to be here. I bring you greetings from my President and the entire people of the United States of America. I bring you my letter of credence as well as my letter of recall from my predecessor. Mr. President, before I arrived here, I cannot tell you how many people told me that in short order I'd fall in love with the country. It's only taken 2 months, and I can confirm that has happened. We are two nations with great shared values and interests. Perhaps not enough people understand this, but you, Excellency, were the primary author of your Constitution. You do understand that. It's my goal in my time here to build on those shared interests, to build on self-respect, to build on our shared values, to take our two nations to places they've never been before. I believe in the art of the possible, and I believe it will happen.
We'd like to return to our lead story today. The U.S. and Iran agreeing a ceasefire on the Strait of Hormuz for 2 weeks. Ambassador Joe Keshi, former permanent secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has been on the line for us. Ambassador, thank you for your patience. I was wondering if this was a win for both the United States and for Iran, and how? Ambassador Keshi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and we're so happy we can. So
okay, let me hear your question again. Sorry.
That's fine. So the ceasefire between Iran and the United States, 2 weeks both countries have given each other. with a lot of skepticism from Iran itself. European allies saying that they are, really thankful for this happening, and peace and negotiation is the way to go to achieving, some sort of peace in the Middle East. Do you think this is a win for both Iran and the United States? And how do you think this is a win for both sides?
Well, look, this is the way they should have gone in the first instance. They are coming back to where they should have been in the first instance, and that is they should have negotiated from the beginning. The United States would have, President Trump should have developed the patience, because diplomacy is very intricate, sometimes very complicated, and you require patience and understanding, before you get into the kind of crisis that he found himself. So where we are now today, it's an interesting development that offers each side a possible win-win situation if they can negotiate properly in the coming few days. Everybody is claiming victory for now, but the truth of the matter is that right now, except they can negotiate successfully in the next couple of days, I do not think that we have, it is yet time for Uhuru. So we can only hope that both sides will be serious in their negotiations. But the truth must be said that don't a way out the States and the rest of the world into. And that's the honest truth. And I sincerely hope myself that the Ukrainians will be very reasonable. The Iranians will be very reasonable in the demands they are putting up when they meet in Pakistan next week or this week.
Right. It is Friday, actually, the meeting in Pakistan. And I think that this ceasefire is all thanks to the intervention of the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who even offered, to mediate between the United States and Iran. Iran does have a 10-point plan. They want the U.S. to consider that within this 2 weeks. Do you think that this, I see things such as, considerations for the Strait of Hormuz, them not being attacked by the United States. Not sure exactly, how the U.S. president interprets this. The fact that Iran is stating what it wants out of this negotiation. Do you think that Trump will be willing to complete these requirements before the ceasefire expires?
Amarachi, where Trump is today, I'm not too sure that he's in a good position to make an extra demand, except he wants to return to war and carry out the threats that he's been making, and that I personally knew that when he talked of destroying the whole civilization, I knew that was not going to happen, knowing Trump for what, the things he has said and failed to carry out. But look, you have to also understand where the Iranians are coming from. The country itself has been devastated. The country has been destroyed by the combined bombing of infrastructure and other amenities by the United States and Israel. And to be fair to them, they will need a lot of money. They will need a lot of money to be able to carry out the repairs. And they are not so sure if the United States at this point in time will be ready to return some of the assets they have, or to even allow them to utilize some of the money they've placed embargo on, or even to leave the sanctions. So if the United States is really interested in having peace, I think the way forward is for the United States to leave the sanctions so that investors and those who want to help Iran, can go and help repair the infrastructure that has been destroyed. But if that's not going to take place, the only advantage they have today is probably to make money from the ports that they are jealously holding on to today. And you don't blame them, honestly. They need money, and what they are trying to do is to see whether they can make money I mean, when you calculate what they will make in a year, that would be about 90 billion, which is probably, you know, a lot more than what they need to rebuild Iran completely.
Ambassador Keshi, we have to end it here. Thank you again for joining us on the program, squeezing us into your really busy schedule. Ambassador Joe Keshi, former permanent secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Right. It's been 32 years now since the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. The community in Abuja gathered to mark the day with a resounding echo of never again.
The atmosphere here is one of heavy silence and shared resolve, a ceremony marked by the traditional lighting of the flame of remembrance.
Lighting the candle represents the future we want.
It is the 32nd anniversary of the Rwandan genocide, and the Rwandan community in Abuja, along with their friends and allies, stand for a minute of silence to acknowledge the scale of the 1994 tragedy that claimed over 1 million lives in just 100 days. Addressing the gathering, the Rwandan High Commissioner emphasized this year's theme, which is Remember, Unite, Renew, which underscores the need for vigilance against genocide denial and weaponization of division.
After the Rwandan Patriotic Front stopped the genocide in 1994, in July 1994, Rwanda stood at the edge of an abyss. Our country was devastated. Institutions had collapsed. Trust had been destroyed. At that defining moment, Rwanda could have pursued vengeance or chosen a different path. Guided by the resilience of our people and the lessons of history, our leaders chose unity, reconciliation, and nation building.
Beyond mourning, the event highlights Rwanda's remarkable journey of resilience and the vital lesson for Africa and the world.
Today, digital platforms allow hate speech and incitement to violence to spread faster and further than ever before, fueled by artificial intelligence and misguided algorithms. The ancient toxins of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, and anti-Muslim bigotry are once again corroding our political discourse. Excellencies, we must learn from these failures and from the evils that unfolded in plain sight. The genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda did not happen spontaneously.
The commemoration of the 1994 Rwanda genocide marks the start of a week-long series of national mourning events, with remembrance activities set to continue until July 4.
Finally on the program, Chinese authorities have released and installed new laser lights along a highway near Jinan in eastern China to cut down drowsiness-related crashes. Drowsy driving is widely recognized as a major road safety risk, as fatigued motorists can drift out of their lane or fall asleep at the wheel. Measures to tackle the problem range from road design features aimed at keeping drivers alert to in-car systems that detect signs of fatigue and issue warnings. In recent years, Chinese officials have been testing a range of road safety measures with particular focus on long rural expressways. However, there's still limited independent data on how effective laser lighting is at cutting crash rates, while some road safety experts warn the bright visual effects could become a distraction for those drivers. Yeah, I do see what they're saying. Sometimes it can be a distraction having too much light around you. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.